James was a striking young man even during his high school years. When his mother suddenly passed away, he drowned his sorrow in fleeting encounters with women older than himself. In the small town where he was born and raised, there were many young and single women longing for male affection. His father was deeply grieving the loss of his wife. He tried to reason with his only son, but James, having tasted freedom and the forbidden fruit, went his own way and ignored his father's sound advice. However, he graduated from high school quite successfully, then got into college without any issues, and moved to a big city to pursue his studies. During his college years, James changed girlfriends like gloves, never thinking about their future. He was just going with the flow and had no intention of starting a family anytime soon. After graduating, fate took James to a completely unfamiliar city where he was assigned as a young specialist. He was immediately given a room in a mixed-type factory dormitory. Married couples lived on the first floor, women on the second and third, and men occupied the top 2 floors. The dorm supervisor had thought of everything to prevent unmonitored interactions. Access to the women's floors was on the left, and to the men's on the right. For security, unused doors were locked from the inside, and the men's section was blocked from the outside with padlocks. Visiting was allowed, but the strict rules did not encourage close interactions between the men and women. However, James wasn't looking for romantic relationships among his colleagues. The city had several factories where mostly women worked, and it was these dormitories that James successfully visited. He was primarily interested in single women, as there was practically no responsibility involved. He also attended dances with his dorm neighbours, but wasn't looking for love among the young textile workers, just danced and forgot. James decided to spend his first vacation in his hometown to visit his father and reconnect with old flames. Marriage wasn't on his mind, although his father hinted, "It's hard for a man to live alone. It's time for you to think about it. Work for 2 more years at the factory, and then you can transfer here. If you don't want to live in our apartment, there's a cozy 1-bedroom left after my mother's passing. It's small for a family, but perfect for you. So think and decide. If you find someone to share your life with, I'll give you our 3 bedrooms so the grandkids won't live in cramped conditions." "Dad, I'm not planning on tying myself down with a family anytime soon. I still enjoy my freedom. I can interact with women for my pleasure without any obligations. I only meet girls at dances. I haven't met my future wife yet, so don't worry. You'll be the first to know about her." James had been working at the factory for 2 years when he noticed a pretty girl at a dance, standing modestly with her friend. He immediately approached her and asked her to dance. During the dance, James tried to pull the girl closer, but she resisted, which surprised him. Usually, dance partners didn't mind closer contact. After 2 dances, he invited the girl to the snack bar to get to know her better. The attendant already knew his taste, and immediately placed a bottle of lemonade and 2 eclairs in front of him. It turned out that Jessica lived in the city and worked at a textile factory. She rarely went to dances because she was shy. "My friend convinced me to come today. I'm here for the first time and it's a bit scary. So many unfamiliar people." "There's a first time for everything," James replied confidently. He realized that winning over this Rose would be quite difficult. However, he wasn't looking for easy ways and decided to take the fortress with a prolonged siege. On the first evening, he walked Jessica and her friend home, but behaved gallantly and didn't even try to put his arm around her shoulders. They met again at a dance only 2 weeks later. When asked why she hadn't come to the club, Jessica honestly replied, "I was working the second and night shifts, so I was very tired. Well, this Saturday, I decided to come again with my friend. It's a bit scary alone. How about I pick you up, and we come and leave together? Maybe we can meet tomorrow during the day, go for a walk. You can show me the city, we'll have some ice cream, and go to the movies." "Well, if my mum doesn't mind. We live together, kind of like recluses. After my dad died, she barely goes out, just to work and back." "What happened, if you don't mind me asking?" 3 years ago, there was an accident at the lab where my dad worked. Something went wrong, and the entire shift died. The company was secretive, so they didn't inform the relatives of the details, and the funerals were closed casket. Mom received a substantial financial compensation, and the company still pays her a pension for losing the primary breadwinner. I wasn't working back then, so we really needed that money. I lost my mum while I was still in school, lived with my dad until I got into college. After graduation, I came here for work. I won't stay long. I'll work for 3 years and then transfer back to my hometown where everything is familiar. Such candid conversations brought Jessica and James closer. They started dating, but not as often as James would have liked because Jessica worked shifts, and he worked strictly from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. When Jessica was busy with work, James continued his ventures into the dorms, but made sure to avoid the residences of textile workers to not run into Jessica's acquaintances. There were plenty of places in the city to have flings without any fears, so his new acquaintance knew practically nothing about his escapades. James had nearly completed his required term. His relationship with Jessica had become quite warm. He even considered taking her with him when he decided to transfer. For his next vacation, he planned to discuss his future work with his father. Coincidentally, Jessica unexpectedly got 2 weeks off from the factory because they were doing some renovations in the workshop. James invited his girlfriend to his hometown, assuring her that he would cover all expenses. "We'll stay at my dad's apartment in the city. While he and I discuss my transfer, you'll be the hostess of the apartment. Cook a sumptuous meal. Dad has been living without a woman's touch for a long time and misses homemade food." "Is this just a friendly visit?" "Honestly, I haven't decided to start a family yet, but I'm beginning to think about it. That's why I want you to meet." Nicholas was delighted that his son came not alone, but with a girlfriend who could soon become his fiancée. With young people, things happen quickly. There was nothing to treat the guests with because he ate at the factory cafeteria, and his fridge only had the standard bachelor set: eggs, butter, cheap sausage, and canned fish if he wanted a snack. "I'll go to the store and buy everything," James assured his father. "And you, Jessica, write me a list of what we need for lunch. I know you're a great cook. You'll make us a luxurious lunch. We'll go about our business so as not to disturb you." Nicholas liked Jessica. She was unpretentious, quite modest. He really wanted his son to have a normal family, but he didn't say anything about it to James. While the men were out, Jessica did some cleaning. It was clear a bachelor lived there. Then she started cooking. James bought everything she listed. The HR department at the factory promised to help with his transfer, but not immediately, so he would have to continue working at his current place for now. However, the manager promised to make a request by the end of the year. Nicholas suggested they stop by a nearby pub so as not to disturb Jessica and discuss some matters. "So I take it things are serious with her?" "Honestly, I haven't decided yet. We've only gotten to the kissing stage. She's against close relations before marriage, but that's fixable. She'll be turning 20 this year. Time to become a woman." They decide that on their own. I wouldn't advise forcing anything. You might regret it. Jessica is a serious girl, so don't rush. If everything works out, I'll sign over my apartment to you, and I'll live in the 1-bedroom. I don't need much. A young family needs space. Well, it'll be at least a year before I move, but I promise you'll be the first to know about any changes. The couple's first night of love happened right before Christmas when Jessica's mum went on a night shift at the hospital, and no one could disturb them. In the morning, Jessica cried in the bathroom for a long time, but soon calmed down and composed herself before her mom returned from her night shift. James quickly had breakfast and rushed to work. Jessica didn't have to hurry because she was starting her second shift week, but he couldn't afford to be late. The young couple had no idea that this first physical contact would lead to their imminent separation. 2 weeks later, Jessica felt she was pregnant. She thought it might just be her imagination, but a visit to the gynecologist confirmed her fears. She would soon become a mom. The young woman decided to tell James everything. She was confident he would be happy too, but she didn't notice much joy on his face, more like some regret. "Are you sure you want to keep the baby?" Maybe we shouldn't rush. You could have an abortion while it's still early, and in the future, when we're settled in a new place, we can think about children. I won't take such a heavy sin upon my soul. Even though I'm not religious, I have no intention of killing my child. Don't bring this up with me again. All right. No need to get upset. We'll leave everything as it is, and time will tell. When the time came, James took Jessica to the hospital, and he waited. As Mary, Jessica's mom, hinted, there would be twins. James had just received permission to transfer and was preparing to move. He called his father, informing him of his upcoming arrival, but didn't mention Jessica's pregnancy. The next day, when James came to the hospital after work, he was greeted with the news. He had triplets, 3 girls. The young father couldn't handle the shock. He didn't even look at his daughters. He ran out of the hospital. James had hoped until the end that the doctor was wrong and that Jessica was carrying just one baby, not twins, but triplets. He was literally in shock and decided to run away immediately, forgetting all about his responsibility and decency. The next day, James finalized his transfer documents, packed his things, and headed to the train station, where he boarded a passing train. No one saw him again. Jessica took the news that James fled the hospital without even seeing his newborn daughters very hard. She loved him so much that she could understand. Not every man, even one seasoned by life, could handle such a situation, let alone a young father who had never had children. Initially, the young mother hoped James would come to his senses, return and apologize, admitting he was wrong. But soon Jessica realized that her beloved man had simply run away from the difficulties ahead. She wasn't going to forgive his escape. Ahead of the young mother were more important problems. She had to think about how to care for and raise her daughters when, besides her mom, there was no one else around. Nicholas met his son cooler than James expected. His father immediately began asking questions for which James had no reasonable answers. Why did you come alone? Where's Jessica? We agreed you would live together and prepare for the wedding. What happened? Something terrible happened. She thought she was pregnant by me, but it turned out not to be the case. When the time came, I took her to the hospital. Mary even warned that judging by the belly, it wasn't just one child. The next day, the staff told me triplets were born. All girls. I couldn't handle that. I took my documents from the factory, got on a train, and left. They aren't my children. She had them with someone else, and now I have to raise them. Did you even see the newborns? Number I ran away immediately and never set foot in the hospital again. I see. You chickened out and left Jessica in a tough spot. What kind of man are you if you abandoned your own children? They aren't mine. End of story. I don't want to hear anything else. All right. You'll stay with me for now. In a week, the tenants from the 1-bedroom apartment will move out, and you can live there. I don't want to see you around. You've embarrassed me in front of Jessica's relatives. James got a job as an engineer at the factory, as his father had arranged with his acquaintances, and a week later, he moved into the apartment that belonged to his grandmother, his father's mother. Nicholas helped his son with the move, but their communication ended there. The man asked several times for Jessica's address, but James remained silent and didn't answer calls. Because of his son's cowardice, Nicholas lost contact with his daughter-in-law and granddaughters, but he didn't lose hope of finding them someday. Jessica was discharged from the hospital. The young single mother was met only by Mary and 2 friends. James had disappeared from the city. Jessica guessed that he had probably moved to his hometown, as he had planned earlier. The young mother erased James from her life, but was at a loss. What should she do? How would she raise her daughters? Her job granted her maternity leave, but at that time, it lasted only about 3 months, and then she had to arrange for the girls to go to daycare and return to work. The most challenging time for a young, inexperienced mother is the first month. Many women are so exhausted from constant sleep deprivation with just 1 child that they can hardly stand. And here were 3 girls. and with such a good appetite that Jessica was nearly driven mad by their constant crying. Thankfully, her mother was there to help. She would go to the milk kitchen and get milk to supplement the baby's diet. Jessica had plenty of milk, but it wasn't enough for all three. The young mother nearly fell into depression due to intense anxiety, but Mary noticed her daughter's state just in time and immediately sought medical advice. The doctor examined the patient and prescribed a calming herbal remedy that wouldn't harm the children through breast milk. However, the medication didn't do much to alleviate the young mother's nervous turmoil. Jessica cried into her pillow at night from despair. How was she going to live? She didn't know. And the money her mother received wouldn't last long. Mary would take the girls to her room at night so her daughter could get some sleep. Fortunately, the milk kitchen was a great help. This additional feeding allowed the girls to sleep almost through the night, waking only in the early morning when their diapers needed changing. In those days, no one had heard of disposable diapers. Sometimes Jessica had the treacherous thought of ending her life, but when she held her daughters close, she realized that no matter how difficult it was for her now, she had no right to leave them to fend for themselves. It was clear that Mary couldn't raise 3 granddaughters on her own, and a children's home would mean a difficult fate for them. This realization helped Jessica pull herself together and never think of such things again. The young woman firmly decided to build her life in such a way as to never allow a traitor, the father who had so treacherously abandoned them in their time of need, back into it. "Don't worry so much," her mother once told her. "We'll get through this tough time. We'll manage. Once the girls are a bit older, we'll send them to daycare, and you can go back to work. No one else will help them but us, and before we send them to daycare, we should have them baptized. Have you decided on names?" "There's only one option: faith, hope, and charity. Nothing else comes to mind." "That's good. I'll visit the pastor in a few days to discuss the baptism." It was difficult for the women to raise the girls on their own, but the world is not without kind people. Friends and neighbors helped in any way they could. Some had their own farms, so they brought eggs and fresh vegetables. And when the girls turned 6 months old, a neighbor who had a lot of poultry sometimes brought meat to add to the girls' vegetable soup puree. Thus, the whole community helped raise the sweet triplets, who grew quickly and delighted their mother and grandmother, not only with their excellent appetites, but also with their good health. The most challenging time for Jessica began when the girls started teething. Again, sleepless nights, and the girls had high fevers. But this difficult period passed without major incidents. The local pediatrician was a frequent visitor at Mary's house, but not because the girls were sick. Nina, the doctor, often visited the young mother to offer advice and more. "It's good you have girls. If they were boys, it would be a real problem. They become stronger and more courageous with age, but until they're 2, they're a handful. Especially when they're teething. They can cry all night, and nothing helps. Although it all depends on genetics. Your red-haired girls are naturally more resilient than other newborns." A year passed. Jessica and Mary organized a small birthday celebration for the girls. The weather was excellent, so they decided to go for a walk in the nearby city park. The little ones started walking by 10 months. Faith and Hope moved confidently without holding hands, but little Charity, the youngest, was a bit scared and only walked while holding her grandmother's hand. The factory's union representatives gave the girls an original open triple stroller for their birthday, so they could be taken out for walks. "Jessica, we were so happy for your good fortune. Look at what we've made for you," explained a woman from the union committee. "Some workers' children have grown up, but the strollers remained. We decided to combine several strollers into this wonder. The craftsman assured us that the wheels are reliable and it has high mobility. No mud will be a problem," added another employee. This support was very timely. Now they could take the girls to stores and to the farmers' market, which was just 2 blocks from their home. and walking in the park became much easier. On this Saturday, the grandmother was home, so she went with the granddaughters to the park. Jessica stayed behind for a bit to do some cleaning. Once everyone had left for the walk, she quickly finished up and headed to the park, where they had agreed to meet near a local cafe. The tables there were set up on a cozy veranda. The cafe owner knew that many city residents came to the park with young children, so he installed a playground, securely fenced on all sides. Children could play while parents didn't worry about them running off, as the entrance was only from the veranda and the small area was easily visible from any table. Mary chose the table closest to the playground to keep a close eye on the girls. When Jessica arrived at the cafe, her mother had just placed an order. They decided to enjoy coffee and pastries in the fresh air, and for the girls they ordered juice. Back then, every grocery store or cafe had glass dispensers filled with natural juices. Typically, these were the most popular tomato juice, along with apricot, plum or orange juice. For the birthday girls, Grandma ordered plum juice and a potato pastry because it didn't have any cream. The prices were affordable. Today, a family outing to a cafe would cost a lot, but back then, any family, even with modest means, could afford a snack in the park. When the waitress brought their order, Jessica called Faith, Hope and Charity to the table. "Girls, come drink your juice." But she didn't have to repeat herself. The children were obedient, as if they understood how hard their mother and grandmother worked for their carefree childhood. After finishing their pastries and drinking half their juice, the girls ran off to play again. Jessica and her mother enjoyed the fresh air, sipping their coffee in peace. "Let the girls play to their heart's content," said the grandmother. "We don't have to rush. We just need to take them to the restroom, or they'll get too caught up in playing and we'll have to head back home." "They never get too caught up. They ask to go themselves," Jessica managed to say when Faith approached them with just that request. Grandma took Hope and Charity as well, so they wouldn't have to wait for them to ask. There was no line for the restroom, so they returned quickly. They spent another hour walking in the park. The girls alternated between sitting in the stroller and toddling alongside. Jessica and Mary decided to take a short rest on a bench by the pond, while the girls were absorbed in examining something in the grass nearby when an elderly man approached them. "Hello, Jessica." "I finally managed to find you," said the stranger. Mary gave him a reproachful look, but Jessica smiled and greeted the man. "What brings you to our city, Nicholas?" she asked, surprised to see him there. "I came specifically to find you and the grandkids. My wayward son refused to give me your address. He insisted you were living with another man and that the children weren't his. But I see that James wasn't lying. The girls take after our family, and their hair color is the same as my late wife's. They even remind me of her in their faces." "There's no need for any complex tests," Nicholas explained. "Mum, meet Nicholas, James's father. The frightened boy couldn't even look at his daughters and ran away from the city, but God will judge him," Jessica introduced him. "Nice to meet you, Mom. Please don't be angry with me, though I am partly to blame. I failed to raise my son properly," Nicholas said, addressing Mary. "Mary," she replied rather coldly. Although Nicholas made a good impression on her, she was still angry at his son and couldn't forgive his departure. "I completely understand your anger towards my wayward son. But I repeat, I came specifically to meet my granddaughters because I didn't believe his stories. I've been wandering the streets of your beautiful city for 2 days now. Finally, fate has smiled upon me, and we've had this chance meeting. What are these lovely girls' names?" "Faith, Hope, and Charity," Jessica replied. Mary decided to stay out of the conversation between her daughter and the would-be father-in-law. "Beautiful names. If you don't mind, I'd like to visit the girls at your home to give them the birthday gifts I brought. I understand your feelings toward my son, but I don't deserve your anger. Let's meet for lunch or in the evening to discuss our situation. Please believe me, I mean it with all my heart. I care about the girls' future." "All right, Nicholas, I don't blame you for anything, and I'm actually glad to see you. I think my mother feels the same way. We'll expect you for lunch." I think 2 o'clock would be convenient. The address is simple. Write it down so you don't forget. My memory is still good. And your town is small. I'll find it. We live at my mum's house in the residential area. It's 6 Apricot Street. We'll be happy to have you. May I join you for a bit longer? Honestly, I don't want to part with such adorable children just yet. Of course, girls. Settle into the stroller. Grandpa will take you for a stroll down the park lane. That day, many park-goers watched with delight as the elderly but quite handsome man proudly pushed a stroller with 3 identical girls. Walking just behind him were a young mother and, presumably, the grandmother. At the appointed time, a taxi pulled up to the lot where Mary's house stood. Nicholas had decided not to search through unfamiliar areas of the residential sector and took a cab from the hotel. Plus, he had bought so many gifts that both his hands were full. "You look like Santa Claus carrying so much," Jessica greeted him. "Well, there are 3 granddaughters, not just one. Each needs something," replied the smiling man. "Bring that inside. We'll hand out the presents to the birthday girls there, and I'll get the rest from the trunk." Crossing the threshold of the small house, Nicholas handed a small bouquet to the lady of the house and another to the young mother. Then he placed a small cake, a bottle of champagne, and several bottles of lemonade on the table. I made sure to get a fresh cake from the bakery. It's so large that no one else wanted it, but for our large company it will be just right. Don't worry. It's made of shortbread with minimal cream, as I specifically asked the saleswoman to choose for small children. In the bag there are also various delicacies for the table and more. And where are the little ones? They got plenty of fresh air and are napping, but they should wake up soon. Then we'll give them the gifts then. And this bag is for you, Jessica. I haven't forgotten about Mary either. Please don't refuse these gifts. They'll keep you warm in the winter chill, Nicholas said, handing Mary a knitted shawl. The woman didn't expect such attention and was moved to tears, while Jessica invited her would-be father-in-law to sit in the armchair while they quickly continued setting the table. They had only managed to drink a glass of champagne each when Jessica heard that her daughters had woken up. The young mother left her mom and the guest to chat and hurried to the adjacent room. After she left, there was a brief pause. Nicholas struggled to find the right words to continue the conversation, while Mary, perhaps emboldened by the champagne, didn't hesitate. "Are you staying long in our city? For business or just to see the sights?" "I specifically made time to find my granddaughters. I'll tell you the whole truth while Jessica isn't here, and then you can discuss it with her. The thing is, I'm completely against what my son did. We had a rather difficult conversation right away, and we still don't talk, even though we live in the same city and not far from each other. His actions disgust me. A real man would never behave like that. Well, what's done is done. As a grandfather, I don't intend to abandon the girls. I've spent a year trying to gather information, but I don't have acquaintances in this city, except for one army buddy. And he lives in the suburbs and rarely comes to the center. James didn't give me your address for a long time, but in midsummer when he wanted to go to the beach, he asked me for financial help, knowing full well that I had the means. So I set a strict condition. I would pay for his round-trip plane ticket to save time, and he would give me the exact address. I remembered the day the girls were born for life and decided to come early. I prepared for a long time. You can't arrive empty-handed. But I had forgotten what to give a 1-year-old. I had to consult with acquaintances and colleagues. As a result, I bought a bit of clothing, children's tights, t-shirts, socks. Well, everything colleagues suggested. I understand perfectly how difficult it is to support children, and when there are 3, it's very tough, especially when there's no man around. But now I consider that issue resolved. As the children burst into the room, Faith and Hope ran to their grandfather. They were more lively and sociable, while Charity climbed into her grandmother's arms. "What were you all whispering about?" Jessica inquired. "Oh, just chatting about life," Mary replied with a smile. "Since the birthday girls are at the table, it's time for gifts." Nicholas changed the subject. Jessica, go ahead and take out everything Grandpa brought. In addition to the already mentioned clothes, each birthday girl received a doll. They were all different, and the gifts also included educational toys, pyramids, blocks, and other children's fun. "And that's not all," declared the smiling grandfather. "Here are 3 envelopes. Each contains $250, so Faith, Hope and Charity won't need anything for a month. And then I'll send more. Don't look at me so judgmentally," he added. "This is from the heart. After all, who else will help you if not me?" The celebration was a success. The girls were delighted with such generous gifts, and Jessica and Mary realized they had no reason to blame Nicholas. He was helping from the heart, not to make up for James's absence. By the way, throughout the celebration, no one mentioned the father's name. The girls were too young, and the adults intuitively decided not to bring him up at the festive table. Dusk had already fallen outside, but they were still sitting at the table discussing important matters. The little ones were playing in the room and not disturbing the conversation. "If you don't mind, I would like to spend more time with my granddaughters. I've already addressed financial matters, but I have an idea. Why don't we all live together?" Jessica and Mary exchanged glances but said nothing. "The thing is, I'm a widower, living alone. I've been working for many years at a numbered plant. Well, in common parlance, such enterprises are called boxes. I can't disclose the nature of my work, but I assure you, I earn very well. In May next year, I'm retiring. My superiors are persuading me to stay, but I've firmly decided to step out into civilian life. My pension will be high, the kind only those who have worked many years in the harsh conditions of the far north receive. So I'm financially secure and can help you." "The only thing left is to sort out the housing issue," Nicholas continued. "I can buy a house. Over the years of living alone, I've saved up a bit. I'm thinking of selling my apartment too. The girls need to be well fed and dressed so they don't feel deprived among their peers at daycare." "You're absolutely right, Nicholas," Jessica finally spoke. "But this is all so unexpected. My mum and I just aren't ready. Although, of course, it would be a sin to refuse such an offer." "Let's do this," the man suggested. "I'll stay in town for a few more days. I have a long vacation, but also grand plans. If you allow me, I'll visit again, and in the meantime, you can discuss it. I completely understand that this is unexpected for you," he added. Having resolved the main issue for which he had come, Nicholas decided to find his former comrade and talk to him about acquiring a house in this city. Fred, his old army buddy, had been living here for a long time. Although he was originally from Alaska, his wife grew up in this city, and after his service, he moved here. Nicholas arranged with Fred over the phone that he would pick him up from the hotel, and then they would head to his home on the outskirts of the city. It turned out that his comrade lived in a house built on the edge of a forest. The house had been thoroughly completed. Fred had always dreamed of a big family. "You came just in time. Another 6 months and you wouldn't have found me here," Fred said. "What happened?" "Not with me. With my parents. You remember, they live in Alaska, in a logging settlement. My father worked his whole life as a ranger, but he had an unfortunate hunting accident. A boar attacked, and they had to amputate his leg. He's recovering now, but I'll have to sell everything here and move to help them. There's a huge plot, a garden, livestock. My mother can't manage alone. On the same plot, my younger brother built a house for his family and then moved to the north and settled there. So we decided that I would help my parents. My brother will support them financially too, but he can't move yet. He'll lose all his benefits. That's how it is." They were sitting in a gazebo behind the house, waiting for the coals to burn down for the barbecue and drinking to their reunion. "Fred, have you found a buyer for your house and plot yet?" "Not yet," he sighed. "The thing is, the plot belongs to the forestry. They gave it to me on lease for a certain period when I got the job. I built the house myself following an original design. I only pay for electricity and land rent, but it's a pittance. No interested buyers so far." While you're grilling the meat, can I take a look around the house? Sure thing. Vicky will show you everything. Besides the 2 floors, the basement has a garage, laundry, cellar, and a large sauna. Take your time, but remember the meat needs to be eaten hot. The whole family gathered around the large table. Fred, his wife, their children, even the youngest daughter who would start school next year. They had a good time, reminiscing about their military service. When everyone went about their business, Nicholas decided to talk openly with his friend. How much do you want for this house? I'd like to buy it from you. I'm retiring in 6 months, and my daughter-in-law lives here, as I told you. I want to gather everyone in one house to live together. That would be the best option for me. I don't want to give this house built with love to strangers, but you'll have to work in the forestry to have the right to the plot, Fred smiled. Nicholas pondered. The offer was tempting. Now he needed to discuss everything with Jessica and her mother. That's not a problem. I've always dreamed of such work, always in the fresh air. Just tell me all the nuances so I can quickly get up to speed. No problem. Do you still have your driver's license? We got them together in the army. I do, but I don't have a personal vehicle. I lived close to work all this time. I could buy a car, but only to go on picnics on Saturdays. I do have driving experience, though, mostly on the factory grounds, driving a small truck. That's great. I need to sell my truck too, although I only bought it last year. It's practically new. I'd like to give this beast to someone who'll take good care of it. When are you thinking of moving? As soon as possible. I plan to send my wife and kids during the school holidays, and then I'd join them. But, since you're buying, we'll all go together. If you can't pay the full amount right away, give me half and send the rest as you gather it. Let's agree on that. I'll leave in a few days to sort out the sale of my property and finances. We'll stay in touch by phone. I think I'll settle everything before you move. As far as I remember, it's only about a 5 to 6 hour drive to where you're settled. You can easily visit on weekends until you retire, instead of taking the train. That's an interesting question. I'll have to check the map and choose the best route. What's there to choose? I have a colleague who knows a good road through the forest leading to the highway. 2 hours and you're in the city. He takes that route to visit his girlfriend every week, says it's much shorter. All right, I'll figure it out. I'll call you once I sort out the finances. Returning to the city, Nicholas checked his account. If he could sell his 3-bedroom apartment profitably, there would be enough money for both the house and the car, with a substantial amount left over. The man remembered that a businessman had long wanted to buy the apartment from him, but at the time, Nicholas had no intention of selling. He had to search through his notebooks for the man's phone number. It turned out that Edward had not given up on the idea of acquiring an apartment in the very centre of the city, so Nicholas arranged to meet with him in the coming days to discuss all matters. The youthful businessman paced through all the rooms and the long corridor, clicking his tongue at the living space. Despite the fact that a major renovation would be needed, and some restructuring, Nicholas thought Edward would haggle for a long time, but he named a sum that, to be honest, the man hadn't even hoped for. How would you prefer to be paid? In cash or by transfer? Well, it doesn't matter, whichever is convenient for you. All right. And when do you plan to vacate the premises so the construction team can start work? I think I'll move out by mid-November. I don't have many personal belongings, and I'll leave all the furniture except for the antique desk from the study as a memory of my father. Very well. We'll settle all payment issues with my notary. There won't be any problems. If any questions arise, well, you never know. We'll not make any assumptions. I'm available by phone all day. 2 weeks before Christmas, Nicholas drove his new truck to Mary's house. Jessica was just about to go for a walk with the girls, but Grandpa announced that plans were changing a bit. Call your mom. Get in the car. I want to show you something. Half an hour later, they were already approaching Fred's former house. The road to the underground garage was cleared, but it was immediately clear that no one lived permanently in the large 2-story house. Get out. I'll give you a tour. This house is ours now, so we'll celebrate the family holiday within its walls. I can't be here all the time yet. I'll retire from work only in May next year, but you can move in at any time, Nicholas explained to the surprised Jessica and her mother, unlocking the front door with his key. It was clear that the former owner had built the house with special care. Behind the front door was a small but very cozy entryway, with built-in wall cabinets and semi-soft benches for convenience in taking off shoes. You don't need to remove your shoes, just brush off the snow, and you can hang your outerwear in these cabinets. Then they entered a large living room, which even had a built-in wall fireplace. Grandpa provided explanations. On the first floor, besides this hall, there's a kitchen equipped with the latest technology and 3 guest rooms, one of which I've already taken, as well as access to the basement, where there's a garage, laundry, cellar for storing vegetables and fruits, and even a small sauna in the farthest room. "And where do those doors lead?" Jessica asked, pointing to a massive double door. "There's a staircase to the 2nd floor, and under it is a closet for storing cleaning supplies. I'll tell you and show you everything later." After inspecting the kitchen, the women went up to the 2nd floor. Here, right from the entrance, began a long corridor, and to the right was a small lounge with soft chairs, and along the walls were tall bookshelves. My friend left a large library, taking with him only the textbooks for his sons. He said he couldn't take all this splendor because there would be no place to set it up at the new location, so we'll be using it. Further down the corridor on the right are the rooms. The first one was where the owner and his wife lived, then the room of their youngest daughter. The next one was a playroom where the girls spent a lot of time, and 2 more, where the sons lived. They were in middle school and decorated their rooms according to their personal interests. As you can see, there's plenty of space, enough for everyone to settle in. On the left are 2 bathrooms, and 2 toilets are located at the beginning and end of the corridor for everyone's convenience. Such a huge house, you could get lost in it. How did you manage to acquire such a marvel? Luck played a part. I came to visit an old friend, and he had a suitcase mood, moving to his parents in Alaska, selling the house and car. Well, it was a sin not to take advantage of such an opportunity. Now we have our own house. As you can see, he left almost all the furniture. So from your little house, dear Mary, you won't need to bring anything. You and Jessica go through all the rooms, and we'll go down to the living room with the girls. I'll light the fireplace and treat them to fresh juice, which I bought specially before coming to pick you up. Faith, Hope, and Charity were sitting in soft chairs, engrossed in looking at large picture books that Grandpa had given them. Half an hour later, their mom and grandmother joined them. The women were amazed by what they saw. They could never have imagined such a thing. It all felt like a pre-Christmas fairy tale. How did you like the rooms? Do you like everything here? I forgot to mention that the heating is autonomous. You can adjust the temperature depending on whether it's freezing outside or raining. I'll explain later where the boiler is and how to set it up. The water supply is also autonomous. Fred drilled a well, installed a powerful pump, and there's water here around the clock. We're not dependent on the central water system. All this is great, but how will we get to work and daycare? When we all live together, I'll drive you. In my absence, we'll arrange with a neighbor. He's a retired military officer, lives with his wife, and their children only visit during vacations. He won't mind taking a ride to the city in the morning and picking you up in the evening. As for you, Mary, a taxi to your hospital will cost you $1 at any time of day. I'll provide money for transportation. It'll be a bit unusual at first, but everything will settle down, especially since I'll only be absent on weekdays and will come on weekends. This is all so unexpected. I feel like my head is spinning, Jessica admitted. The conditions here are certainly luxurious, but I'm at a loss. What do you think, Mom? This is paradise compared to my little house. Getting to work is a bit more complicated. But if Nicholas has thought everything through, then there's no reason to delay the move. That's not all. We have several months of winter ahead. So, I suggest we go into town now and buy you all some warm clothes. I've already picked out a few things. We just need to try them on to make sure they fit. We'll buy the little ones coats to grow into. Don't refuse, we have the money. I sold the apartment at a good price. And where will you live until you retire? I've secured a room in the family dormitory for the time being. I only need a place to sleep. I eat at the factory. We have a cafeteria that operates 24/7, since there are 3 shifts and everyone needs to eat. Without delay, after making the necessary purchases, they took everything they needed from the old house and had a small housewarming celebration in the evening. There were 2 days off ahead, so there was no need to watch the time. The girls were put to bed in their new room. There was a big bed where they comfortably settled. Only Mary needed to go to work, and even then, it was for the night shift. Nicholas promised to take her there on time and pick her up in the morning. They also planned to go to the Sunday market to buy groceries. The kitchen had a large double-door refrigerator, and there was a freezer next to the pantry. Therefore, Nicholas decided to stock up on meat and other products to calmly prepare for Christmas. The more Nicholas interacted with Mary, the more he realized he was falling in love with this charming woman. She was only a few years younger than him, but she had lived without a man for a long time, dedicating herself entirely to raising her daughter and later her granddaughters. When they all started living under one roof, Mary took on all the household responsibilities for the large family. The only thing she feared was the gas boiler. This piece of technology filled her with superstitious dread. Nicholas successfully retired. Now he didn't need to leave the close-knit family for long. He went to the forestry department and got a job there. Early in the morning, he would get up and prepare a quick breakfast for everyone going to work or daycare. Then he would drive, as he liked to say, his girls. If Mary had to go on duty for the first shift, he would drop her off last to have a little time to talk privately. Recently, deeper feelings had developed between them, which made Jessica very happy. The young woman was content. Everything in her life had finally settled thanks to Nicholas's care. The only thing missing was simple feminine happiness. But changes were on the horizon. At the factory where Jessica worked, a month later, the management appointed William as the acting head of the department. He was quite sociable and tried to get to know all the workers in his department right away. He immediately noticed Jessica among the staff. The young woman caught his eye. "There's a desirable bachelor in our department, and he can't take his eyes off you. Don't miss your chance. He's quite the catch. Someone else will snatch him up if you keep daydreaming," her colleagues advised. William was naturally a social person. In college, he always organized various events, from museum trips to dances at the college club. He quickly grasped the nuances of production, and soon the department workers started exceeding their targets without any hype or overtime. The management liked this initiative, so they issued an order to keep William in the position permanently. Immediately after this, he organized a meeting with the factory's leadership, a cafe gathering for all engineers, foremen, and production leaders to get to know the department better in a private setting. He personally invited Jessica, although she initially wanted to decline, citing that she needed to pick up her children from daycare and that Nicholas would pick her up. "Dear Jessica, allow me to arrange things with your father-in-law. I guarantee I'll get you home safely." After such words, the young woman stopped hesitating. But as she left the gate, she watched for a moment as William gestured while talking to Nicholas. "There's a young but very active fellow here who proposes to kidnap you for a little while," he explained with a sly smile to Jessica as she approached them. "I've picked up the girls. Now we're going to get your mum. I think it's important to socialize with your colleagues outside of work hours, especially since there's a reason. I'm not against it. I promise to have Jessica home by 10 p.m. "All right, and we can have tea together to get to know each other better." William wasn't at all fazed by the fact that Jessica had 3 daughters. In a private conversation, he told her that he grew up in a large family where he was the eldest, along with a younger brother and 2 twin sisters. "I've been taking care of younger kids since I was a child, so I love spending time with little ones. How about we take them to the circus this weekend? It's only in town for 2 weeks. I'll get the best tickets. It's not a problem. That's a unique way to ask me out, Jessica smiled. I understand that children are everything in our lives. So why not bring them along? And afterward, we can sit in a cafe. Do your daughters like sweets? They love them, but I limit their intake. Although Grandpa and Grandma often spoil them, but in moderation. The small gathering went smoothly without any incidents. The company was moderately drinking, with lots of dancing and conversation. People started leaving after 9 p.m. The junior engineering staff sincerely thanked William for the wonderfully organized evening. Everyone enjoyed the interaction, but they needed to be in good shape for work the next day. William hailed a taxi and safely drove Jessica home. Remembering Nicholas's promise to treat the guest to his signature tea, the young woman invited William inside. The gracious host quickly set the table in the living room, right next to the fireplace, which wasn't lit due to the warm weather, but it was still pleasant to sit by. I'll leave you for a bit. Need to check on my girls. Though Grandma won't let them misbehave much, Jessica apologized. Don't worry, the guest won't be bored, Nicholas assured her. But don't be too long. While the young mother was away, the men managed to talk about everything and nothing in particular. But the older man, thanks to his life experience, figured out that the guest wasn't just curious, but had serious intentions. You see, William, Jessica is very dear to me. She struggled for a whole year in a very difficult situation, left with 3 newborns. I won't go into details about her husband. Unfortunately, he was my only son. But I found them to help raise and support my granddaughters. I managed to buy this house by chance. I retired early and moved here to be close to them. Who else will help them? So I bear responsibility for the lives of what I lovingly call my girls. If you have serious intentions, I'm not against your relationship. Jessica, William, and Nicholas sat by the fireplace for a long time. Then Mary joined them, bringing sweet, aromatic pastries she had baked. Later, Grandma and Grandpa found a reason to leave the young people to talk privately. From that day on, William began to gradually develop the relationship. At first, Jessica couldn't believe she had found her happiness. But soon she realized William got along well with her children and was ready to spend all his free time with them. Not once did she hear a reproach from the young man about her situation. On the contrary, he repeated several times, "You should be proud of your daughters, not ashamed of them." Nicholas had long since fully explored the forest area assigned to him. This was a protected zone where you wouldn't find mushroom pickers or nature lovers, as the locals strictly adhered to the established rules. Curious boys sometimes wandered into the forest while playing, but the ranger didn't detain them, though he did give them a preventive talk. The area ended near a small forest lake. Nicholas learned from a colleague that there was plenty of fish there because outsiders didn't come, but the forestry workers sometimes went fishing. Knowing that William loved and knew how to fish, Nicholas decided to take the future family member to the lake one weekend to bond over fishing. He asked the forestry manager for permission to ensure everything was legal. "No problem. Go fishing and do it often. Before the frost, we need to catch as many big fish as possible so they don't suffocate under the ice, like a few years ago when even forestry workers were prohibited from fishing there. Only use a rod or spinning reel, no nets or traps. Catch what you can and take it with you." William was delighted with the fishing trip. He honestly admitted he hadn't enjoyed himself this much in a long time. In a couple of hours, they caught almost 2 buckets of carp, tench, and big perch. They even caught a large pike weighing about 11 pounds on a spinning reel. "This will make a great fish stew, and we'll fry the rest. I once told my granddaughters about an original egg dish with carp, and we should make it and treat them. Aren't you afraid they'll choke on a bone?" That's the secret. First, the carp are fried until crispy, then the head and backbone are removed. Only the fatty meat remains. Then they are placed crispy side up on a pan with oil and topped with eggs, beaten with sour cream. It's hard to resist. By lunchtime, the fishermen were back home, and Nicholas began preparing the fish stew and the exquisite egg dish. He entrusted the rest of the fish frying to Mary. They set the table in the gazebo outdoors. The weather was wonderful, and it would have been a shame to sit indoors. The meal was fit for royalty. The aroma of the hearty stew spread throughout the yard. They invited the neighbours to join them. Nicholas knew that Timothy and Rachel loved fried fish, but the retired military man never fished, only occasionally buying some at the market. But it couldn't compare to freshly caught fish that sometimes danced in the pan. "I'm curious about one thing," Timothy asked. "Why don't you have any flies? We have swarms of them, making it impossible to eat peacefully." The secret is simple. Around the gazebo, Fred planted several cherry and walnut trees because flies and mosquitoes can't stand them. Elderberry is also good at repelling flies. That's why in villages, they plant these bushes near garbage areas. The smell of elderberry also repels rodents. "Neighbour, can you give us a couple of saplings? We'll plant them at our place." "No problem. While the trees are growing, do this. Fill a double-layered sturdy plastic bag with water and toss in a few copper coins. Then hang it outside. The sunlight will make them shine brightly, and it will scare off flies due to their vision peculiarities." They say you learn something new every day. People come up with all sorts of things. Lavender is also great for repelling insects. You can plant it in pots and place them on the gazebo railings. However, its strong scent isn't for everyone, but you'll have to decide for yourself. In early fall, William came to visit, dressed in a formal black suit with a crisp white shirt and tie. "William, why are you so dressed up? Are you and Jessica going to the theatre?" "I've decided to ask Mary for Jessica's hand in marriage." "Wow, so you're planning to get married?" "I can't proceed without the mother's blessing. That's how my parents raised me." "Good luck. I've been sent to get fresh bread. I'll be back quickly. I'm heading to the bakery." They always have fresh bread at the kiosk by the entrance. Mary was moved to tears by the news. She couldn't believe her daughter had finally found her happiness, even with 3 children. Not every man would dare to marry a woman with such a commitment. When you submit the application to the registry office, hint to the staff that the bride is pregnant so they expedite the registration, Nicholas advised William in a whisper. On Monday, during their lunch break, William and Jessica went to the registry office and submitted their application. They were given 2 weeks to reconsider. Nicholas's advice worked, so the large family began preparing for the wedding. William called his parents and invited them to the wedding, saying they could bring the kids. There was enough room for everyone. Nicholas drove the couple to the wedding venue in a car decorated with ribbons and balloons, where all the guests were already waiting. The factory management provided a bus for the special occasion, so all the guests could comfortably reach the wedding venue. They didn't book a banquet hall. Instead, at the end of September, they set up a table in the gazebo for the newlyweds, witnesses, parents, and children. For the guests, they brought tables from the house and arranged them in a semicircle, so everyone faced the bride and groom. Rachel helped Mary set the tables, while Nicholas and Timothy transported the cafe-ordered food in specially equipped trunks. They decided to prepare the hot dishes themselves. For this, William and Nicholas went fishing. The fried fish adorned the tables, and Timothy was ready to grill kebabs to serve them hot. Despite the hasty preparations, the guests were satisfied. William's parents, Peter and Laura, were impressed by the unique construction of the house, where their eldest son would now live with his wife. "What a wonderful house you have, and such a large property. Besides the garden, have you also started a vegetable patch here? Next year we plan to build a greenhouse. Now that there are 2 men in the family, things will move faster, and I'll order building materials from the forestry department. Everyone in the office does that. We have many plans, but there's never enough time to get everything done." On Christmas Eve, Nicholas made a proposal to Mary, which she gladly accepted. Jessica had already started her own family, so her mother had no more worries. They celebrated the wedding modestly, just with family. They invited only Timothy and his wife, their closest and dearest neighbours. The close-knit family and guests comfortably settled in the living room, where a large round table could extend to seat 12 people. To create a cozy atmosphere, Nicholas had lit the fireplace in advance, and the room quickly filled with the aroma of burning birch logs. "Life can be surprising sometimes," the host began. "I didn't get to become a father-in-law, but now I'm a stepfather." "Which makes me very happy," Jessica chimed in. "I barely remember my biological father, but I love and respect my stepfather immensely." The group had 2 days off ahead of them. Mary's hospital management had granted her a week of paid leave for the occasion, which was very timely. They converted one of the guest rooms on the first floor into a master bedroom, deciding that the second floor would now entirely belong to the younger couple. "In our age, it's better to stay closer to the kitchen," Nicholas joked. "It's more convenient for me to live here too. Everything is nearby, the kitchen and the laundry." "Otherwise, I'd be running up and down the stairs," Mary agreed. By the May holidays, Nicholas and William had built a permanent greenhouse. He managed to rent a tiller from the forestry department and thoroughly ploughed the vegetable garden. Then he and his son-in-law planned the garden beds, and the women planted seedlings. The little helpers eagerly participated in all the activities. Grandpa taught them how to properly tend to the trees to ensure a bountiful fruit harvest, while Grandma and Mum instructed them on planting seedlings. A few years passed. Faith, Hope, and Charity were getting ready to start school. By mid-August, Grandpa and Grandma took the girls to the school fair to buy everything they needed. They chose spacious backpacks. Grandma wanted the girls to have good posture. Each future student picked her own colour to avoid mixing them up later. William and Jessica worked in the greenhouse and garden, gathering a bountiful harvest. In the orchard, apples, pears, and plums were ripening. They had picked cherries and sour cherries back in June, ate their fill, and canned the rest, storing them in the cellar. The couple had taken time off work to peacefully gather the harvest. Otherwise, Grandpa and Grandma would have done everything themselves while they were at work. In the evening, they decided to have a small family celebration to toast the school fair purchases and the excellent harvest. The men in the family weren't avid drinkers, but on weekends they allowed themselves a beer with dried fish, or something stronger if they felt like it. Last year, William bought a car to drive the kids to daycare on his way to work, so Grandpa wouldn't have to be the family chauffeur. The garage had enough space for 2 cars, so it wasn't a problem. The addition of another gas guzzler didn't affect the family's finances. Their income had increased significantly. Now they shopped simultaneously. Nicholas went to the farmer's market, while William went to grocery stores. They had plenty of their own vegetables and fruits, and also canned for the winter. They mainly bought meat, bacon, and poultry at the market, and cereals, sugar, tea, and coffee at the stores. Only Grandpa went for bread because a former forestry colleague worked at the nearby bakery. He had retired and found an easy job through connections. He always set aside fresh bread and bagels for Nicholas, which the granddaughters loved. By tradition, they set the table in the gazebo behind the house. They only locked the gate at night. Uninvited guests never dropped by, and the neighbours knew where to find the hosts. Following Timothy and Rachel's advice, they got a small dog this year, which barked loudly to alert them of strangers. In the middle of dinner, Rascal announced the arrival of an uninvited guest. Since the dog would only bark at strangers, Nicholas said, "Sit tight. I'll see who's disturbing our peace." "Wait, I'm coming with you. You never know." William disagreed with his father-in-law. Standing in front of the house was James with a suitcase in hand. He hesitated to step forward because Rascal was barking fiercely and wouldn't let the stranger onto the porch. Dogs have an instinct for sensing people. "How did you find us? I never gave you the address. What brings you here? No one's expecting you." "Enough with the lectures, Dad. I have 3 kids here. I have the right to see them. I brought gifts before school starts. They should know their father." "They already have a father, and that's me, and there won't be another," William sternly interrupted the stranger. "Right after the wedding, I officially adopted the girls, and they happily call me Dad. I'm their biological father. I have every right to see my daughters." "The only right you have is to leave quickly and forget the way here forever. As they say, you're not welcome here. If I see you again, I'll throw you out. You abandoned the kids when they were born and didn't think of them for years, so you have no rights. At least let me talk to Jessica. Even though you're my son, it's better if you leave. This isn't your family. You're a stranger here. William is right, forget the way here. And your gifts aren't needed. They have everything they need, Nicholas said. After escorting the uninvited guest out and locking the gate securely, Nicholas told William, "There's no need for the women to know who came. Why spoil their celebration?" James spent his life running from one woman to another. He still lived in the one-bedroom apartment his father provided, and no changes were on the horizon. Years passed, and his old acquaintances had their own families, while James, returning home from work, sat alone for long periods, pondering how his life might have been if he hadn't run away back then. He suddenly wanted to reclaim what he had fled from years ago, a woman, children, and family comfort. But it was too late. It was bitter for him to realize reality, but it was his punishment for betrayal and causing pain. 3 years passed. The large and close-knit family grew even more. Jessica gave birth to twins, this time both boys. They named them Arthur and Andrew. The same pastor who baptized the older sisters baptized them. He wished the large family love, health, and prosperity. Initially, Mary was taken aback by the news, even shedding tears, but Nicholas reassured her. "In a few years, you'll be seeing brides coming into this house. That's life. We should be glad that in our old age, we won't be alone in this big house." "That's true. I got emotional for no reason. We should be happy, and here I am, feeling sad," Mary said. When they went to pick up Jessica from the maternity hospital, the nurses warmly kissed the newborn's older sisters. They remembered when they were picked up years ago. Back then, it was just Mom and a few friends. Now, Arthur and Andrew were welcomed by a large family. William showered the medical staff with bouquets, then took his sons in his arms, while Grandpa handed out champagne and boxes of chocolates. At home, by tradition, the table was set in the gazebo. The sons were carefully placed in a double stroller gifted by the factory management. The boys had just eaten and were quietly sleeping, allowing the others to celebrate. Their older sisters watched over them diligently so that Mom and Dad could enjoy time with the guests. The big house accommodated everyone, though they had to rearrange some furniture, but the cozy atmosphere remained unaffected. Inside the home, happiness, health, and prosperity had taken permanent residence, while Rascal's loud bark kept unwanted guests at bay.